Hello, dear friends. People are afraid to say what they think. The abandonment of the journalistic values of debate and intellectual investigation is worrying. Open discourse is the central pillar of a free society. Freedom of speech is our best defense against misinformation. The price of freedom carries with the requirement of kindness and civility, even toward those who express views we do not share. Opinion piece. Argument against censorship. International Manifesto. Westminster Declaration. Censorship industrial complex. No one has a monopoly on truth. Repression of debate and research. Social progress depends on freedom. Let's start. Scientists, thinkers, writers, politicians from different parties, and activists have united in the Westminster Declaration against censorship. This manifesto is the result of a first meeting of defenders of freedom of expression from all over the world, meeting in Westminster, London. In it, the first 100 signatures bring together names of personalities of recognized prestige in different fields such as science, thought, politics, or activism, of different ideologies or of different nationalities and from different places of the planet. All of them has raised their voices against the international censorship that has been imposed and which until now has shown to have links between governments, the so-called verifiers, and internet platforms, as well as the collaboration of the main media outlets that they have participated in the persecution, cancellation, discrediting of people who, from their experience, from their praxis as experts, have tried to present points of view different from those that our ruling party has imposed on different current issues and great impact. Release. The signatories, as journalists, artists, authors, activists, technology professionals, and academics, want to warn about growing international censorship that threatens to erode centuries-old democratic norms. Coming from left, right, and center, they are united in their commitment to universal human rights and freedom of expression. And we are deeply concerned by attempts to label it as disinformation, denialism, hate crime, and other imprecise terms. The abuse of these terms has led to the censorship of ordinary citizens, journalists, and dissidents in countries around the world. Such interference with the right to freedom of speech suppresses all valid debate on matters of urgent public interest and undermines the fundamental principles of any representative democracy. Around the world, governments, social media companies, universities, and NGOs are increasingly working to surveil their citizens and muzzle them. These large-scale coordinated efforts are sometimes called the censorship industrial complex. This complex often operates through direct government policies. They have given themselves the power to remove political content on social media and criminalize political speech. But the censorship industrial complex operates through more subtle methods, such as visibility filters, labeling, and manipulation of search engine results. By banning from their platforms and flagging information, social media censors have already silenced legitimate opinions on issues of national and geopolitical importance. This has happened with the full support of the disinformation experts and fact-checkers of the mainstream media, who have abandoned the journalistic values of debate and intellectual investigation. The European Union's Digital Services Law formalizes this relationship by providing data from such platforms to supposedly train researchers from NGOs and universities relegating a right of expression to the discretion of these unilaterally appointed entities without accountability mechanisms. Some politicians and NGOs are even targeting messaging applications with end-to-end encryption, such as WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram. If encryption is broken, we will have no methods left to preserve private conversations in the digital sphere. Threats. Although foreign disinformation between states is a real problem, agencies designed to combat these threats are increasingly used against the citizens they are supposed to protect. Under the pretext of preventing harm and protecting the truth, freedom of expression is treated as permitted activity and not as an inalienable right. We recognize that words can sometimes offend. We reject the idea that hurt feelings and discomfort, even if serious, are grounds for censure. Open discourse is the central pillar of a free society, and it is essential to hold governments accountable, strengthen vulnerable groups, and reduce the risk of creating tyrannies. The protection of freedom of expression does not only apply to opinions with which we agree, but we must vigorously protect the expression of those opinions to which we strongly oppose. Only in an uncensored agora can these opinions be properly heard and challenged. Fear of speaking. What's more, time and again, once unpopular opinions and ideas become conventional wisdom. By labeling certain political or scientific positions as disinformation or bad information, our societies risk becoming trapped in false paradigms that deprive humankind of hard-worked knowledge and eliminate the possibility of acquiring new knowledge. Freedom of expression is our best defense against misinformation. The attack on freedom of expression is not only about distorted rules and regulations, it is a crisis of humanity in itself. Throughout history, campaigns for equality and justice have relied on open forums to express dissent. In countless examples, including the abolition of slavery and the civil rights movement, social progress depends on freedom of speech. We don't want our children to grow up in a world where they live afraid to speak their minds. We want them to grow up in a world where they can express their ideas, explore them, and debate them openly. A world that the founders of our democracies envisioned when they enshrined freedom of expression in our laws and constitutions. Human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was written in 1948 in response to the atrocities committed during World War II. Its Article 19 establishes every individual has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes the right not to be disturbed because of one's opinions, to investigate and receive information and opinions, and to disseminate them without the limitation of borders, through any means of expressions. The corollary of the right to freedom of expression is the right to information. In a democracy, no one has a monopoly on what is considered true. Rather, truth must be discovered through a dialogue and debate, and we cannot discover it without allowing for the possibility of mistake. Censorship, in the name of preserving democracy, embeds what should be a system of representation that emanates from citizens to their representatives and turns it into a system of ideological control in the opposite direction. This censorship is ultimately counterproductive. It shows distrust, encourages radicalization, and delegitimates democratic processes. Throughout human history, attacks on freedom of expression have been precursors to attacks on all other freedoms. Regimes that erode freedom of speech have always inevitably weakened and damaged other fundamental democratic structures. In the same way, the elites who drive censorship are also undermining democracy. However, What has changed is the broad scale and technological tools through which this censorship can be applied. Call. We believe that freedom of expression is essential to ensuring our safety from abuses of state power, abuses that have historically posed a far greater threat than the wealth of individuals or even organized groups. For the well-being and development of humankind, we made the following three calls to action. First, we call on governments and international organizations to fulfill their responsibilities towards citizens and respect Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We call on technology corporations to commit to protecting the digital agora as is defined in Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and to refrain from censoring other opinions for political reasons, from censoring dissenting voices, and from censoring the expression of political opinions. Finally, we call on the general public to join us in the fight to preserve democratic rights of citizens. Legislative changes are not enough. We must also create an atmosphere of freedom of speech from scratch, rejecting climates of intolerance that encourage self-censorship and create unnecessary personal conflicts. Instead of fear and dogmatism, we must embrace research and debate. We defend your right to ask questions. Heated discussions, even those that can cause discomfort, are much better than no discussion. Censorship robs us of the richness of life itself. Freedom of speech is the foundation for creating a meaningful life and a thriving humanity through art, poetry, theater, literature, philosophy, music, and many other areas. Breaking news. Leaders of the BRICS countries discuss Gaza in an emergency session today, November 21st. Russia sends 27 more tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Israel chooses Russia as Palestinian negotiator. Did Israel carry out the first space war in history with the Arrow system? A large sunspot is turning toward Earth. It is 200,000 kilometers wide, contains a dozen dark nuclei, and is crackling with M-class solar flares. The sunspot complex is so large that three numbers are needed to label it. The active region is turning towards Earth and poses a threat of eruptions by midweek. Americas. The government of Argentina prepared measures to contain the dollar after Milei's victory. Milei's priority will be to eliminate restrictions on foreign trade. The largest public bank in Brazil apologizes for its role in 19th century slavery. The prosecutor's office opened an investigation after discovering that among the founders and shareholders of the banking institution were some of the most notorious slave traffickers of the time. The president of the state-owned Banco do Brasil, Tarciana Medeiros, asked for forgiveness from the black people for the entity's involvement in slavery and the trafficking of African captives during the 19th century. Opinions. Bishop Strickland. I have a duty to defend the truth against the father of lies. Arcturian Council 9D. The aliens have interfered with you, but we will not do it according to Daniel Scranton. Intervening is the complicated part for those of us who want to help humankind so much, because we want to help without interfering, without taking away the opportunity you have in front of you to grow. And there have certainly been ETs that have interfered with your development. Message from Kesharaj. The people of the stars, as some ancient cultures called them, are your ancestors, your family. Many of them called them angels because of their beauty and the love they expressed towards human beings. They will land on Earth in the non-too-distant future, as they have done in the past. This big meeting will take place much sooner than people expect. Defeat of evil. According to Benjamin Fulford, Satan has been defeated and a cleansing operation is now being carried out. In his opinion, France has split. It is now under the control of Pierre de Gaulle, grandson of Charles de Gaulle. At the St. Petersburg Forum, de Gaulle raised the possibility of France joining the BRICS. Africa has also split. The Russians have provided military support to recently independent African countries. The Chinese have provided economic support. The African countries of the British Commonwealth are also independent. Japan and the Korean Peninsula are now a battlefield in a rearguard action to maintain control. In other words, much of the news events of the recent years can be seen as the Dark Clan fighting to stay in power. It now turns out that one of the main reasons for the current conflict in Gaza is to secure the huge gas reserves found there. However, the weak still face bankruptcy, despite impoverishing Westerners to stay in power. As Kim.com points out, Russia, the most sanctioned country in the world, ends 2023 with a profit of $75 billion, while the US, the most sanctioned country in the developed world, will end 2023 with a loss of $2 trillion. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.